Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Purpose People podcast. Today, we got Beverley from Awaken Mentoring. So welcome to the sofa.
Thank you very much. Great to be here. Beautiful day to be here.
It's a beautiful day, isn't it?
Always bring the sunshine.
So you've obviously been driving around and you spotted that we were in the countryside and stuff. And then you said, oh, look, I'm in a maize field. So how did you know that?
My hubby will be very impressed that I even knew I was anywhere near a maize field. He's an agricultural contractor.
Yeah.
So as a result, obviously, we don't live on a farm, but we live in a rural village and I'm surrounded by countryside. And so I've kind of I now know about maize and going to country shows and ploughing matches and all of that stuff. So so that's how I knew when I was part there and you said, what can I see? And I went, a maize field that's been cut down.
I know. Living in the country, we've had to, learn the country life. We've got fox hunting that seems to happen, that shouldn't happen, but maybe not happen. So it's been an interesting education over the last sort of year or so, of just country living and country life.
Yeah.
But, the whole village appear in the local pub.
Right.
So you don't see them. It's desolate. There's hardly anyone around. But when it's quiz night on a Thursday, about 250 people converge on this pub. Which is
I
quite
didn't
nice.
See the pub, actually. I drove up through the village and down, so I must have missed the...
Yeah, there's a pub in a place called Ham, and it's called the South Station Inn, and it's a microbrewery, and it was started by a 25-year-old entrepreneur, and he's been there 10 years now and done some great stuff.
Great stuff. So
entrepreneurs in the country, which is another reason why we're here, is that you're entrepreneurial. You've got your own business, Awaken Mentoring. So... Let's start on the word awaken. How do you get to this awaken? What does awaken mean in your eyes and your heart?
It was strange, actually. I started the business 13 and a half years ago. I'd just come out of burnout, so I was on my kind of thinking, what was I going to do next? Made the decision I would never work on a permanent basis for an employer ever again.
How did you come to that decision?
I'd been in corporate for 30 years and unfortunately my last corporate role ended with some bullying and stuff, and busy, working long hours, on the treadmill, couldn't get off. Just all that general stuff, and ended up at the doctor's and he said, you're 2 weeks before you're hospitalised.
Wow. So
you need to take days now. You don't go to work on Monday or I pick you up in an ambulance in 2 weeks. Choice is yours.
So it's pretty final.
It was pretty black and white, so I had to take a sick note. And from that point on, then I was on the sick for 6 months. Then I came out of that role, and I just thought I can never ever work for anybody again, or trust anybody to have staff. So I didn't want to have staff. I didn't want to work for anyone. I just wanted to be me, and my aim was to retire from my own business. So that was the aim. And then I just, with the name, just kind of muted around different friends, and then somebody just said, why not Awaken? Because that's what's happened. You've suddenly kind of gone from this massive burnout and corporate life to awakening, I suppose, to a new life and a new way of living. So, and
I think that term awaken is interesting because a lot of people seem to go through their career asleep. They go from 1 year to the next year to the next year, absolutely. And they're not necessarily intentional, particularly in terms of corporate life as well. The corporate life is, there's a ladder and everyone's looking at the ladder. And, I've worked in both sides, and one thing I see with the corporate thing is it gets very political very quickly. Yes. And it's the most political seem to survive.
Bureaucracy is the name of the game as well.
Yeah.
And it's not me. I did it. I did it for 30 years, but and there's parts of it I still love. So when I go in and I visit corporates and I work with corporates and I do speaking engagements a lot at corporates, it's lovely to go in there. And it's lovely to walk out at the end of the day and go,
well, this is what I ended up doing. So when I say I worked in corporate, I was freelancing in corporate. So I got the frustrations of the staff within those environments, but I could go home, whereas they were always on it and always in that game. And I think for me, it's a sense of security, as in you're in a big environment and there's obviously loads of opportunities, and in some companies you can go around the world if you want to. But it is a thing where if you want to rise to the top, there's a game to be played, and I don't think I'm being unfair about that. I just think that there's a certain type of person that can thrive in that environment. But I'm starting to think now, even talking to them, particularly with furlough, when people got furloughed from corporate companies, that's where people then started going, hang on a second here. Am I that expendable? Whereas before they felt almost invincible, that if entrepreneurs are closing businesses and SMEs are closing down, the corporates were all going to be fine. And I think that was probably the first time where it hit home that, hang on a minute, I could be doing this for 20 years and it's gone.
It's gone.
So I think there's been this sort of balance now where both entrepreneurial and working in a corporate is an equal risk. But it's obviously, you got to decide what type of person you are if you want to survive, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I was never cutthroat. I got promoted throughout those 30 years. I was always promoted. I ended my career, reporting into directors and stuff. So I was a very senior manager.
Yeah.
But it just got the backbiting, the trust, I just couldn't do it anymore. I think I just got to that point where I was like, that's it, I'm done.
Yeah, and I think there's that element as well, is that there's only so much one person can take over a long period of time. You're doing something for long enough, and eventually one day, as you said, you awaken and you go, actually, I don't want this anymore. I want to do something else.
Yeah.
And so
I didn't want it, and I just felt I wanted to work for myself, and so that's when I started it all.
So in terms of Awaken mentoring, then, what sort of people do you want to work with, or are you working with now? Are they people in that environment, or are they completely different?
It's funny because being in business for 13 and a half years, I started off doing one-to-ones and life coaching and burnout mentoring, but it's really changed and it's really expanded. And now where I am today, I'm doing a lot more kind of public speaking, keynote speaking, going into large companies, maybe running some workshops, but certainly doing talks around not just my burnout, about well-being and my self-care and how I turn things around, and how, as my hubby says, life is simple and humans make it difficult. And, let's try and strip that back and see how we can turn your chaotic life into one of calm.
Yeah.
And so that's what I tend to do today. I don't do as much one-to-one now. I tend to do more group work or speaking and that sort of thing. And I also write. I do a lot of writing. So I've written a couple of books and I write for the local press and stuff. So.
Wow. So you've taken your voice in one particular environment and you've opened it up into many different environments. What do you enjoy the most? Have you got an area that you go, you know what, I absolutely love writing or absolutely love speaking?
The two which are very equal is the keynote speaking and the writing.
Okay.
They're the two, and I think that's because I'm reaching large audiences in both those, if you like, genres and forums. And do you know what I mean? I can really kind of feel that, because for me, I want to get my message out wider.
Yeah.
One-to-ones is fine, but you're on a one-to-one. It says it itself, doesn't it? And I want to make life different for many and to give people that opportunity to go, hang on, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? What treadmill am I on? What am I actually doing here? And through the public speaking, I have a lot of people come up to me at the end, usually in car parks, which sounds a bit dodgy, doesn't it? But they don't want to put their hand up in the audience. They don't want to admit that they're feeling burnt out or that they've got a mental health, kind of condition or whatever you want to call that. And so they will come and speak to me afterwards when everybody's kind of filtered off, and they'll say, this is happening to me or that's happening to me. And so it's a good blog, Car Park Conversations. It's good. It's a good book, actually, isn't it?
Yeah, because I agree with you. I mean, for me, when I've been speaking, is you do a talk or whatever, and you'll get a round of applause or whatever, and then you kind of like you're packing down or putting your books in the car or whatever, and it's only then, or you get DMs on LinkedIn or whatever. And I think for me, it does take a certain kind of individual say, you know what, actually, this has hit home, and I need to do something about it, or let's have another conversation. And
so I've had people come up to me, which is I'm not saying it's great, but it was grappling, I suppose, in that I've gone for lunch. I've done my talk. I've gone for some lunch with them, and they've actually approached me and said, because of you, I've just gone and made an appointment for my doctor 5:00 tonight. Thank you. Without you, I wouldn't have done that. I've had emails where they've said, I've suffered for X amount of years and you made me realise it's okay to go and talk to my manager, and now they're giving me help that I never had before. And those are the things that just fill me with, I would say joy, but just that fulfillment of being able to help people. is amazing. Yeah.
So like in anything in life, then there's obviously the symptoms that you deal with, and we can touch a bit on that. But then there's that deeper thing that you have to go to find out where it is. Where do you think, in your experience, the major problems are where someone does not open up, does not speak? When you go deep down into it, where would you say is the most common thread or common theme that you start to discover?
I think one of the biggest is judgmental.
Okay.
They don't want to be judged.
Yeah.
They don't want to. For me, when I went through it, I came out the doctors that day, and 30 years career meant nothing. I felt a failure. I felt I failed my mum, my dad, my siblings, my people that work for me, my friends, and most of all, I'd failed me. And I didn't want to be judged on that. I never thought I'd be a statistic of the 1 in 4 and, all of those things. So you hide it, you wear a mask, you pretend it's okay.
Yeah.
When actually it's not. And that is because you don't want to be judged, because people feel, and it's not, obviously we're talking 14 years ago. So I think even back then, it's probably a bit worse than it is today. Mental health is talked about a lot more today than it was back then. But I still think there's that thing of like, I don't want to tell people because people will think I'm failure. People will think I'm useless. People will think I'm weak. People will think, all of these things that come with that judgmental things. I think that's a big problem.
Do you find there's a difference between men and women, or do you think it's an equal thing? Where do men tend to hide more? Do women is there still that?
I think it's equal.
Do you? Yeah,
I do think it's equal, because I've had equal amount over 13 and a half years come to me, male and female. And even though I've put out there that, my website is quite female driven. I run Awaken Women's Entrepreneurs for small women, small business owners of female. I run some networks for both as well, but I still have quite a lot of men that have come, and I've said, well, would you like to speak to a male coach? I know people who deal with, male mental health, and no, it's fine. I've read your story and it's you that I want to speak to. So it's an equal. It's very much, for me, it's equal anyway. I don't know if that's the same for everybody, but certainly I'm finding that.
I think for me, it's what's interesting is that there is how do I put it? There is an equal amount, the male side of things, which is driven a lot by ego and posturing and, position and stuff like that, are finding it, I need to talk about this and get that out there. Women, when we talk about imposter syndrome and stuff like that, we're kind of aware of it, and a lot of women talk about it. They're quite open about, I feel this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
But what I found in my experience is that guys kind of like, well, yeah, I'm all right. And kind of like dumb it down a bit. So it's good that people are starting to speak out.
I've always kind of said that it's quite strange, because I've had quite a lot of execs or, male come from the corporate world. And I don't know, what is behind that. But the strangest thing is, I look at it and I think maybe they feel that they can't speak to they want to speak to their wife or their partner because they feel that they need to support that person. They're there to support. They're the big, I need to be supportive. I'm the supportive part of the family. I'm the one that's there. They don't want to go to their friends because their friends might judge them as being maybe weak. Or get on with it. You'll be all right. Let's go for a game of footy. It'll all be fine. They don't want to go to their line manager because that might then put them off getting promoted again. And if they go to a male coach, do they really want to speak to another male who again might be judgmental? So I'm going to go for somebody who's a total stranger, female. It's almost like, is it a sister or a mum figure? Yeah. That's why they pull towards that, female coach. I don't know. That's what I've found over the years. So
yeah, I think within certainly the corporate structure is that there's that bubble that literally everything exists in this bubble, and the whole world operates through this bubble, and you can't see outside of it. Yeah, and everyone's connected, and they're replaying 101 conversations before they speak or they talk or whatever. So yeah, it takes a great deal of courage, I'd say, to step out of that and say, I need a conversation. Yeah, because it's almost like the times or the pressure are more than what people think. And I think you get to a point where you don't care what people think, and you've just got to make the decision to do what you need to do.
That's right. I think so. And I think, the one thing that I've had when I've done talks, and guys have come up to me afterwards and spoke and everything and just said they'd made excuses for not going into work before, but I'd made it okay. I'd made it okay to talk about. It's okay to talk about it. You're all right. You can do this. You can talk about it and nobody's going to judge you and you're going to get help and everything. And they've gone, actually, yeah, that's okay. I'm going to go and do that because I can see that we need to have open conversations. Because if I had an open conversation, I probably wouldn't have got as worse or as bad as I did.
So obviously, you had your own experience at this sort of the awakening, so to speak, or whatever. When people come into your realm, is there a process that you take someone on to awaken themselves to the situation that they find themselves in?
Yeah, when I was doing the one-to-ones, I mean, now I said I don't do many one-to-ones now, but the process, and a lot of it turns out to be conversation. It's conversational.
Because they never talked about it.
Exactly, they've never talked about it. And I don't have vast programs or things that I've put in, and this is going to change your life, and this is going to, because the biggest thing that will change your life is talking about it and admitting what's going on and coming up with some things that they can do jointly. Yeah. So like I kind of, if you like, a bit of a sounding board, so they can come to me and then they talk about it and then we can kind of move that forward. So there isn't a level kind of stage process because I believe everybody's different. We're all different. We all have different experiences. We all have different timelines. We all have different family backgrounds. We all have different friends. We all have different. So for me to put somebody through the same process, it works for some people. Mm-hmm. Not for others. And so I don't, I just literally kind of take them through what I feel they need. Yeah. It starts with the conversations.
So talk to me about the group scenario. So obviously you're taking groups. So how does that work? Do you get them all in a room together? Do they all come on Zoom together?
Obviously through through COVID, it was all on Zoom.
Yeah.
I'm zoomed out. So to be here today with lovely people is like, isn't that lovely? And if you say to me, do you want to meet up? I'll go, well, should we get together? And I'm like, yeah, where do you live? That's my first question to me. Like, I'll travel. I'd rather do that than sit on Zoom. So where I can, I prefer to be in, and certainly when running groups, I run networks. I run a network every last Friday of every month, and that's back in a room. And I did that through Zoom over COVID, and it just doesn't fit. I just don't feel the energy. You can't get that same what's the word? I don't know. That same interaction, that same kind of people gelling together.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had it said to me that basically, Bev, you kind of like come more alive in a room. The difference between me in a Zoom room than to another room is, I know it's different. I think it's different for everybody.
Yeah, I think people are tired. Even when you see a podcast where you got two pictures of people and it looks like a Zoom, and it's like as soon as I see that, I'm like, oh, I can't listen to this. I can listen to it audioly, but I just can't even stare at the screen because I've seen it.
Can't.
It's too much.
It's too much. It's too much, and I don't do. Again, the screen time. I try to limit as much as I can. I'm out of the office probably more than in the office. My office is home based now, which I changed sort of thing. I've got a head office, but I don't think I'm brand. Because again, I just love being out with people. I love, it's just, if I'm not working, then I'm doing other stuff. I'm volunteering or I'm doing whatever it takes to be with people, really. Because it's important to me. I find that, even for my own mental health, if I'm honest, I can't be in a room staring at a screen. I just can't. It just doesn't fit with what I need.
Yeah.
My needs, I suppose. I prefer to be out.
No, it's good. It's good. And what I found is certainly networking physically, people in a room, certainly for business owners anyway, or leaders, they prefer that. And I mean, we met Humans, which is an event that we do. And those people are hanging around their peers, so to speak, but they're in an environment where they feel supported. And it's quite funny when we're talking, it's like, I really needed that, because that might have been the only physical conversations they've had other than their wife or their children or maybe their relatives for that month, because they are working at home and alone, if you like. And for me, the power of conversation, the power of people is massive. It's
massive. I mean, I speak to everybody. I speak to strangers. Strangers are only strangers and they're friends once you start chatting to them. Do you know what I mean? I always say that. Strangers are just friends you haven't met yet. I quite often will go out and my partner or my hubby will go, who was that? I go, I don't know. Did you not know him? No, not before that conversation. No. You know, we went to Ryman's yesterday in local town, and we were there like, I don't know, 20 minutes chatting to the guy, you know, and then he was saying, "God, you've been coming in here for years. I didn't realise you'd had burnout." So, yeah, you write a book about it. Oh, I'm going to get your book. What's your book called? You know, and it was just amazing, just a chat.
So let's touch on burnout. You know, let's touch on that. And so what would be some of the symptoms of burnout where, you know, actually it doesn't have to be as drastic as you got 2 weeks and you're going to be in an ambulance, but what are some of the symptoms of burnout that you've encountered that are consistent?
Yeah, I mean, I've literally, I do a talk around the 7 signs of burnout, and I know that if I'd have recognised these signs previous to actually 2009, then I wouldn't have ended up having to take the year and having to get myself in that, what I call mess, to get out of it.
Yeah.
And to go down so dark and so deep. So basically, things that happened from 2007, 2008 onwards, where my personality changed. I've always been a happy, jolly, friendly, out there person, you know, I chat to anybody. I became a really kind of negative and, you know, I was no longer solution based. I was always questioning everything. Do you know what I mean? I became very kind of like, whatever, sort of that attitude, if you like. I became really paranoid that everybody was talking about me, and not in a good way. That I would walk into a room and people would be chatting and it would be about me. No, it probably wasn't. I'm sure they had more interesting things to talk about.
Yeah.
But in my head, it was about me. I became really sad, so I would cry at anything. I mean, like I say to people, I'm a Cancerian. If anybody else is a Cancerian, you know, crying is part of that whole thing, right? Because it's an emotional star sign. If you're into astrology. However, I would sit having lunch with my mum, and then I would be crying. What are you crying about? I don't know. I woke myself up one night and I was crying. I literally had tears running down my face, and I was asleep when it was all happening. So that was sadness at its absolute worst. Loneliness, I became really lonely because the other one was isolation. So I isolated myself from everything. I used to say to people, I'll come out for your birthday party, and then ring them 10 minutes before and go, I don't think I'm up to it. I won't feel well today. I'm not doing it. So I became very isolated, which then meant me very lonely.
Yeah.
Loneliness is a strange one, really, because you can be in a room full of people and you can feel like you're looking in on that room from above.
Yeah.
And that's how I was feeling. I could have conversations going on around me. I don't know what they were. People would say something and I'd go, sorry, you know, didn't know what was happening. And then the last 2 was physical illnesses. So I started to be at the doctors more and more on antibiotics. So chest infections, ear infections, throat infections, kidney infections, bad legs, you name it, I had it.
Right.
And the last one, which is so unlike me, and anybody will tell you it's unlike me, was anger. I was angry with everything. I was angry with me. I was angry with my parents. I was angry with my friends. I was angry with life. I was angry with God, because why was he letting this happen to me? I was so angry. I was like, what have you done? Do you know what I mean? Like, why not? Because I used to sit in my office when I was burning out and go, please God, get me out of here. I don't want to be here anymore. I don't like this job. I don't want to be here. And then when I ended up the depression, I'd sit there and go, I wanted out, but not like this. What have you done? Why did you, you know, clearly I wasn't really clear about what I wanted. But that's
an interesting point, because sometimes we want things to change, but we, you know, when that process of change begins to happen, we're like, oh, not that way.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, we were expecting it somewhere else. And I think for me, change is always needed, but how it comes about is often unexpected. Yeah. It's not the way that I would have expected it. And I think sometimes you know that change needs to happen, but you don't know how to instigate it or how it's going to change. You know, even myself recently, you know, there was change, and I've now jumped in the plane and gone to California, but maybe I've not done that had there been some changes that happened here. And I thought, you know what, actually I need to push further forward. And I guess that's what change does. It gets us to push a little bit
forward and stuff. And so, and when I realised that those were the things that were happening, I was able to kind of, if you like, take each one of them. I mean, like, I don't do anger. I don't now. In fact, I walk away probably from confrontation rather than go towards it.
Yeah.
So all those things, and I've put a lot of self-help things in now that I know I can see if any of those signs, if I start to feel my physical health isn't doing what it should be doing, it's like, what is the reason behind that? Why is this Why is it starting to...
Yeah, it's not just a cold, or it's not just a headache.
It's not just why am I getting a cold? Why am I getting a headache? Why have I got a bad leg again? Why, just kind of going, because you need rest.
Yeah.
Because you need to stop. And that's what I say to people, it's okay to keep battling through if you've got a cold. It's not okay to battle through with a cold and a kidney infection and a headache. And it's got to stop somewhere. You're being told to stop and literally take rest.
Yeah, because I think you could creep into martyr syndrome. It's like, well, no one else sees it, but I'll keep fighting the fight or whatever else.
Yeah, and it's like, what do you do that for? So I don't. I sit down and read a book or watch telly or whatever else I feel at that time I need to do, or go and visit people.
Rest is a big one. So, how do you rest?
Sleep.
Sleep, yeah.
I love sleep, I always say, actually, when I was going through my burnout, there's two things that in my mind, or in my case, you fall into two camps. You do. You either don't eat very much. You kind of go to that point where you're like, food is not, I don't want to eat, can't bother to eat, blah, blah, blah. And you unfortunately get insomnia and you can't sleep. I did the opposite. I slept a lot and ate a lot. So I put on a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And all those sort of things. Whereas now I identify that. And if I need to rest, if it's an afternoon, got home the other day, been up since 5:45. I run my morning network, which I do every last Friday of every month. I got back, I had to take my parents out in the afternoon. They're elderly, so I had to take them somewhere. And when I got back, I thought, I've got to go to bed for half an hour, because in our room we get the sun comes in the afternoon. And so Mike came home and he went, "Are you all right?" I was like, "I'm just having a sleep for 10 minutes. It was hard enough half an hour, and that was fine then."
I think one of the things I've learned is like, it's managing energy rather than managing time. So like, for instance, if you are like flagging at 3:00 in the afternoon, it's better to just go for a 20-minute walk and do something different and change the environment than it is to just keep struggling at the machine or keep making those calls.
That's
or whatever.
the other thing I do. I'll go for a walk. We live in a rural village, so it's lovely. And like you, we see a lot of people all the time. So if I go out for a walk, I have to go in one direction where I know I'm not going to see anybody. Because if you go up through the village, you can go for a 10-minute walk and it takes an hour and a half. So it's absolutely How you doing? How's your parents? What are you doing? So I have been known. Most people are known to go out the shop. My dad goes out in the morning for his paper, 8:30. He gets home at 10 to 10. He goes in the car. It's like up the village and walk at those.
So in terms of your lifestyle then, because you said you lived in a city a long while ago as well, and so there's this compare and contrast. Is that you're corporate and in the city, and now you're working maybe with more SMEs or people, and you're in the country. So it's a big shift from where you were to where you are now, isn't it?
It is, but I was born in Raglan, so I was born there and I loved it.
Yeah.
And I was saying to your colleague earlier, at 23, I was like, I get home late one more time, and my mum says, everybody in the village is going to know what you wear. They all know you pick up from the pub at 1:00 in the morning. And I used to think, just don't. Do you know what I mean? I just need to get out of here. So I moved to London, biggest contrast ever. And I loved it. I had a great life. And I lived in London for a while. And then I came back, lived in Chepstow, which again is a small market town.
Yeah.
And then went back to London again. And I lived in Dublin. And I lived by the seaside in Dublin. I went to Sandy Cove.
Lovely.
So I lived in all three kind of elements, really.
Yeah.
And when I got to the burnout point, I was living in Newport at the time, which is the first city in Wales. And I just used to go home all the time to my parents who lived in Raglan. And I thought, I just need to be here. I just need to be here. And I always you can go into Raglan two ways. I don't know if you know it, but you can go up to the roundabout, see the castle, round the roundabout into the village. Or you can come off the slip road and go into the village and past the church. And I always used to come off and go past the church because I always used to feel that I'm home, I'm safe, I'm secure. And this is where it all's happening. And I just love the community. I absolutely love it now. I love the fact you go up the village if you're kind of feeling a bit low. By the time you come back, you're on cloud nine because you've met loads of people and you've chatted. And so that community feel is a lot different. I would prefer now to go to a country show than go to the Grosvenor Hotel. I still work in the city. I go back to London quite a lot.
Yeah, but you can go in and out and come out. But what I find amazing is that when you're younger, you kind of like, I don't know whether it's programmed into you or you just think bright lights, big city, or whether it's opportunities. But it's like, I want to get out. I want to go and explore the world. I want to go and do these things. And then actually, as you get older, you realize actually community is more important. And you realize that actually the people, let's say in a large city, aren't thinking that way. They're thinking about getting the job done and getting the heck out of there.
Yeah.
And you realize that over time, and you realize that community is everything. And I love the analogy where you say you come back and you go, oh, I feel safe. You know, there's people around and I can talk to and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So community is a big
massive.
thing.
Yeah, huge for me. And that's what I love, like even doing the networks. I love networks that are a community.
Yeah.
That have that friendly, supportive, do you know what I mean? Those kind of things. I'm not very much into the kind of like, right, this is what we do and we're regimented and we have to, you know, like, no, I can't do that.
Read scripts and whatever.
I can't do that.
So we're talking about purpose now. So from your perspective, do you feel that you found purpose now in terms of what you're doing?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Especially now going out and doing more of the speaking and being able to then, and to do more of the speaking is really because then that allows me a little bit more time to do the writing.
Yeah.
And have more time to spend with, you know, my family, who are highly important, very important in my life. I talk about them a lot. And for me, it's about spending that time. You know, my parents are 91 and 85, and it's amazing to still have them here. And I want to spend time with them.
Yeah.
You know, I want to be here for their kind of twilight years and to be spending that time. And we took them to Barry Island for their 61st wedding anniversary, and they were joyous, you know, because I thought, what would it be like to get to an age where you think you might never see the sea again? What would that be like?
Yeah.
I was like, I can't have that. They need to see the sea again.
Yeah.
So we took them.
And they loved it.
They loved it. I've never seen, my mum's on like a walk thing, and never seen two people get out of the car and walk down to the sea wall so quick.
Well, the good thing is you don't stop living, right? You know,
exactly.
Live right as long as you can, as fast as you can, and experience life for what it is. You know?
We stood in front of the amusement arcade, and my mum was like, "Oh, I love the sound of the amusement arcade. It just brings back so many memories." So I actually videoed her standing in front of it so that she could play it back when she was at home and relive that moment.
So in terms of like Awaken mentoring, what shape does it take on then? So they obviously in a group session. Is it over a number of weeks? Is it is it 12 weeks?
It's usually just a workshop. You know, I would run one-off workshops. So I run workshops around mental health conversations. Yeah. I also do like vision boarding type things. Okay. So creative stuff to help people. It kind of just around that. I don't run as many workshops as I used to. Mm-hmm. Mindfulness is one. So anything that people I do a talk maybe, and then they come and say, what's your next? You know, what do you do in smaller groups? I can then offer them those sorts of things. And I like to run, we run kind of retreats and things like that where I can bring people together and then offer them things like maybe reflexology or yoga or something in a safe space where they can come and just relax for the day. So those sort of things, rather than kind of workshops as corporate workshops, if you know what I mean. Yeah,
and I think that the biggest thing for me I found is that change of environment, taking them out of the everyday to somewhere else. Yeah, allows people to almost have a different energy in terms of their conversations and how they're going to talk and how they're going to relate and how they're going to interact. So it does make sense that they go somewhere else other than their place of work.
Take them out of where they used to be. Absolutely.
So do you want to share a couple of stories about, obviously you can't give names to protect the journey, but do you want to share a couple of stories of how you've helped someone from what seems to be a tough place to be able to go somewhere else?
It's a difficult one because they're all so different, but a lot of people I've helped have kind of changed their life in the fact that I've had some that have come out of corporate. I've had a number of people that have come out of their jobs because they've read my book and they've had some coaching. And I don't want to coach people out of work, but what I try to do is to get them to understand what's really out there for them. Yeah. And that could be starting up their own business. It could be going into consultancy. It could be, a number of things. So I've had a couple of people around that. I've had one of the first guys probably I ever coached or mentored. He still says today, this was like only 13 years. This was 10 years ago. And I still know him today, and he's got his own successful business today. And he said, do you know one of the most important things you ever said to me? And this is really bad, so it's really... He said, you told me to man up and sort it out, because I kept telling you I was going to resign, and then I didn't. And I was going to resign from my job, and then I didn't. And in the end, you went, look, either you're going to man up and do it, or we're going to have to take the direction of somewhere else, because maybe it's not right for you to be doing entrepreneurship. Maybe it's not. Anyway, he did. And then he started his business, and now he's highly, highly successful. So yeah, and
I think there is that time and place. I think there's that aspect of where you say like man up or whatever.
Yeah, and
people can take it as no, I know, but some people can take it as it's a lazy thing to say, but for the right time and the right place,
it was absolutely the right time to say, and I would probably say the same with you, a female. It wouldn't be, it's nothing to say that you would be, I'm directing it because he's a man, it was like, look, come on, get, what are you going to do? My thing is, don't keep paying me to help you to change your life if actually you're not going to make the decisions that are going to help with that. You have to take the inspired action. And I'm not the sort of coach that will or mentor that will keep taking your money just for you to talk to me every month. If that's all you're going to do, then you can get a counsellor or you can get something, because it doesn't sit right with me. A lot of people will say, yeah, but if they're paying you,
it's like the driving instructor that's
money.
never putting you in for a test and you're paying to learn to drive, and you're lesson 28 and they've not put you in for a test. It's like, no, there's something wrong here, if the lessons were any good, you wouldn't need so many.
Yeah.
In that sense.
The ideal situation for me is for clients, I suppose, or mentees to come on board and work with me, but only work for me with a maximum of a year, 6 months maybe, and then for them to move on. Now I'm kind of friends with quite a lot of my close friends, but still in touch, because I love watching their journey. I love seeing how they are. We bump into each other at networks or whatever. But my aim is not to keep you in my mentoring for the rest of your life, because I wouldn't be doing what I'm supposed to have done, what you've paid me to do.
No, that's good.
You've paid me to help you make changes, and I need to help you do that.
No, it's really cool, because and that's the thing, right? They might be that season of change, and then maybe 2 years later they go for another season of change where they're going to need
they might ring back and they might come back, and other people do that.
Yeah.
But I do these vision board workshops, which are just a creative, kind of bit fun. We've talked about the whole manifestation stuff, which again is another thing, isn't it? And people contact me and they go, when are you doing your next one? When are you doing your next one? At the end of the year, they always want the next one in the January, February time. And I'm lucky, because people do want to keep coming back. And I said, well, you've done them for... You do it on your own now. Yeah, but we love that day. We love spending that day together. It's the creative environment. It's meeting the other people that you bring into that environment. So yeah, it's nice. But like I said, I want to mentor you for years and years and years, because it's not really what I want to do. Do you know what I mean?
So just tell us how someone would get in touch with you, because obviously, there's a lot to unpack. There's about burnout. There's about planning the future in terms of vision boards and stuff like that. Yeah. Group speaking. How would someone get hold of you if they want to reach out?
The best way probably is through the website, which is obviously awakenmentoring.co.uk. So that's the one thing. But or through probably LinkedIn is the best one if you're into kind of the business side.
And the name of your book?
The name of my book is Made It Through the Rain.
Okay.
And it's available on Amazon or through my website, but you can get it on Amazon anyway. It's whichever.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Bev. I really enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
It's been fun. Thank you so much. Cheers.
Thank you.
Everybody, thank you for listening to the Purpose People podcast. You can obviously see us on YouTube, where you can see our wonderful setting here that we film every time we do a podcast. But you can also listen to us just in your ears on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, and Google. Please like and subscribe to YouTube, and please leave a review on our podcast. It really helps us get the message out that can help people live a life on purpose, for purpose. We want to help you make purpose a priority.